Aura friends.
Oh.
Welcome back to the Brickanista Broadcast Network here on YouTube and on Rumble. So excited to be here today because we are reviewing Lego Masters New Zealand Season 2, Episode 3. And I'm here with my buddy, p.t.mcewen. And
hello, everyone.
You get that over there. So, PT, how's it going over there in sunny California?
Not bad. You know, it's nice and sunny. I think summer's starting to kick in. It's been rainy and drizzly the last 2 weeks. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've been super excited because I've been really looking forward to this episode. And one of the things that PT and I were talking about is that, yeah, we're both in the United States and we are reviewing Lego Masters New Zealand. I have a little bit of knowledge of New Zealand just from my visits there, and that I was adopted by a family of Maoris. So that's why I have Brickanista here on my little label, because they call me Kahurangi, or Kahu for short, when I go to New Zealand. So my cousin, Kingy Biddle, I'm hoping we'll get to see him on a future show. But I did invite one of my dear friends from New Zealand to join us today, because I said, you have to make sure to keep us Yanks in line to make sure that we are, explaining the different cultural aspects of this New Zealand show. So please help me welcome to the stream. We have Alun Chisholm. Hey, Alun.
Hey, Alun.
Hi there. Good.
Good to see you. And I also brought a little friend with me too. So here's my little Kiwi puppet that I got as a gift from a mutual friend of ours. Both Alan and I know Murray Coots, who we know from Toastmasters New Zealand. So we both know him from that. So I had asked him to pick up a puppet for me because I have a puppet of a crane. So it was like the U.S. meeting New Zealand. Yeah, and I have another, not a puppet, but it's a plushie. And this is a yellow-eyed penguin that I got from the New Zealand yellow-eyed penguin colony down in Dunedin. So they'll be making little guest appearances today when we start talking about some of these builds. But so Alan asked me to introduce him, but he sent me a bio a while ago. And one of the interesting things about Alan is that he was born in China, in Hong Kong. And so he often refers to himself as Asian. And he's been living in New Zealand for quite a few decades. And he said that he would be happy to be a part of this, because I think of you as a Kiwi, even though on paper you may not be a Kiwi, but you've been there many, many years. And this particular episode that we're going to be reviewing talks a lot about Kiwiana. And we're really excited that you're on the show to help us keep us straight and make sure that we inform people with the right information while we're out there.
I'll try and keep you in line.
Yes, keep us in line, please. Please. I know it's interesting because the last time when Karen Lindley was on the show, I was talking about Baldwin Street, which is in Dunedin. And I talked about the Jaffa races, but at the time I wasn't pronouncing it Jaffa, I was pronouncing it Jaffa. And she goes, it's Jaffa, right? So I had to keep pronouncing it over and over again. And just the look on her face, it was just like, yeah, Americans just... And for PT, you probably don't know this, but Baldwin Street is the steepest street in the world. And what they have are these called Jaffa races. If you can imagine a peanut M&M or a round gobstopper, about that size. And it's a lolly or candy in New Zealand. And what they do is they put little numbers on them and then they roll them down the street once a year for a fundraiser. It's like the Jaffa races. And I think it was Cadbury who made the brand. But yeah, so if you ever get to Dunedin, go walk up Baldwin Street and bring a bag of Jaffas with you, which I did. And I got up to the top and I met a couple of Australians, and we have this on video where we rolled a couple Jaffas down Baldwin Street. I'm sure the people of Baldwin Street absolutely hate that, but it's a tourist thing to do, right? So, but anyway, welcome. And today we're going to be talking about Lego Masters Season 2, Episode 3. And this one was, I just thought, probably one of the most interesting ones that we've seen so far. We've already seen Episode 1 and 2, and we had a chance to meet the teams. And I think this one was really great to, I think, bring out more of the artistry of the people in the competition.
Yeah, they definitely, I would say the same. I think they definitely brought out, and it was kind of, it brought in that artistry because of the idea of using a frame. So let me pull this up here, and boom, and here we go. So there is our lovely team, 6 teams, all coming in. Not exactly sure what they're about to launch into.
Well, and for those of you who have been watching the series, that last week we had a chance to talk with Angus Deacon, and he shared with us that, you know, they walk in and they look as if they've walked in for the first time. But he said that there were several takes of that. So each time you had to look like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll jump right into it. So they basically said the brief is Kiwiana inspired artwork. And they were given a building with a pre-built frame. They wanted to have 3D structures extending beyond the frame. They wanted to add lighting effects. And of course, this was a team elimination round, and they had 12 hours to do that. Oops, sorry, I don't think I had that slide up.
I was going to say, he remembered all of that.
No, I'm just reading the wrong slide.
That's okay. But if you can go back to the slide again, yeah. I think you mentioned the lighting effects, and they often refer to this as night mode.
They do.
Show us your night mode, and what do you plan to do for night mode? Which I thought was just kind of a cool way to say, there's got to be some lighting there. Because one other thing, Robin Sather, who's the chief judge, mentioned that you're building this piece of art, and this is going to be not only 3D, but this gallery is open 24 hours.
Yeah.
And because it's open 24 hours, you need to also present this also in night mode.
There they are. It's when they came out with their glow sticks and their light up things, and then they went right into dancing.
Yeah, I thought this was actually pretty funny that both Di and Robin seemed to really enjoy this part of the dancing. And I don't know, is this a Kiwi inspired dance, would you say, Alan?
Not one that I know, but youngsters nowadays.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think this was pretty much free-form dancing.
Yeah.
And they dimmed the lights down, and only a few of the people went out, though, to dance, which I thought was interesting, too.
Yeah. Some people went out and danced. So, yes, they were given here's a picture of their box that they were given. So you can kind of see what the frame looked like and whatnot.
I was able to count some of the studs. It's about 16 studs deep and 48 studs wide. I don't know how tall it is, though. I'm guessing it's probably over 96, because I think that's more than twice the width of the...
Yeah, so here's a shot of Amy and Louie, and you can kind of see, this is in the middle of their build, or partway through their build, and you can kind of see how big it is. I
thought it was massive. Just trying to imagine having to build on that and build it with the depth in addition to, the base of the frame. Yeah.
And, there was a few tragedies, and they actually had one. Wasn't terminal for them. They kind of recovered from that. Surprisingly, everything pretty well intact. So it means they built it well when it happened.
That's a great shot, because you can see things flying in the air too.
Brick went flying everywhere. In that previous shot, they were holding it up, and then one thought the other one had it, and they let go. And this is right in the middle of the build, and then boom, it fell down.
Yeah.
But yeah, that wasn't the only tragedy. So we can go straight into the builds here. I don't have. Oh, there we go. And the real tragedy is the Henny and Peter and their build. They started
Spoiler
building.
alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Sorry. Thanks, Brickanista.
For those of you who haven't watched the episode yet, that
Yeah.
But,
So they were at the end, literally minutes at the end of their build, and they had this beautiful albatross with the lighthouse in the background and whatnot.
But before you go on, there was a very important detail they mentioned that I wanted Alan's opinion about, is that they said the albatross picked up a chocolate fish, saw a chocolate fish, and then flew off. And I know that chocolate fish is one of the lollies of New Zealand because I did a video of several different lollies I tried down there. But I'm kind of curious about how long has this been, the chocolate fish, been a known Kiwi type of dessert?
Well, it's not a dessert. It's a marshmallow in the shape of a fish covered with thin chocolate. It's sort of the prize you give to anyone when they do something interesting. Like, this is the prize. You get a chocolate fish. We went to Waitomo Caves one day, and we're deep in the caves in water. And somebody got out this thermos flask, and he opened it up, and he pulled something from it. It was a chocolate fish. And we all got a chocolate fish, and we had to explain to all the foreigners what a cultural icon the chocolate fish actually is. That and pineapple lumps, which are the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Pineapple flavored.
It's imagine a Charleston chew, PT. That kind of consistency, but shaped like a fish. And in the case of the pineapple lumps, it's more like a Charleston chew, kind of a cube look.
Gotcha.
But they mentioned that when they were explaining this particular piece.
Yeah.
Chocolate fish is very iconic in the New Zealand culture.
Yeah. Wow. So is the pineapple then, Alan? Is that like a candied pineapple, or is it a marshmallow flavor? Is it a marshmallow that's flavored pineapple?
It's a marshmallow that's flavored.
Gotcha.
And some of them are soft and some of them are hard, and they come in a bag.
Gotcha. All right. Curious. All right. Well, they were at the end of their build, Henny and Peter, and they had to go into night mode and turn their lights on, and that is when, sadly, the albatross, and you can kind of see it falling apart. You see it falling right in front of Peter there, falling down, and this was what was left. The albatross is just on the ground, and right. And this was minutes right before the end of the competition. It was very, very sad, and what was nice is to see everybody rally around them and kind of console them, because they, if you're a Lego builder, you've had Lego builds before. You're building it and it just falls apart. Especially at conventions, if you're traveling, you tend to have to rebuild stuff. But yeah, I thought it was really nice that they all kind of came together and consoled them in that moment.
What was interesting about this episode is just prior to that is Angus and Karsten. They had a conversation together because they have the golden brick from the previous episode. And they said that they weren't sure whether to use it or not. So Angus took a walk around all of the builds and he goes, "We don't need to play it." And Carson says, "Are you sure?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I'm sure." And then it was kind of like, he said, "Which one?" And then Angus looked over at the albatross build and pretty much said that one. So I thought the editing was interesting in this because they almost created Angus as almost like a villain character, right? Because just prior to we got to see this disaster unfold. But he said, yeah, we don't have to worry about playing the Golden Brick because this team is going home. He pretty much said that this other team is going to go home.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that was interesting is right after the tragedy, Angus is the first one to walk over there to console Peter.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting about the editing of all that. I was like, I'm not sure if Angus was really happy about that editing. I don't know. What did you think about that?
Well, I mean, I kind of saw that, but it was this was before the break. There was some things they felt that theirs was a little better. At least they felt in their mind that there were some builds that were not as good as theirs, and but yeah, you could have said that was an editing thing.
I definitely think it was an editing thing.
Yeah,
because of close-ups. Anytime they do a close-up of anybody, they're doing some sort of foreshadowing or clever, I don't want to say manipulation, but clever storytelling. We'll call it that.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I think it's just interesting that they focused on that because, they have all this film, 12 hours of film that they have to condense down.
Yeah.
And the close-up of him going off to talk to Karsten and then the close-up of him consoling Peter afterwards, I think it was genuine that he was really sorry because I don't think anybody ever wants to see somebody's builds fall apart like that.
Yeah.
But the way it was edited, I really wasn't happy about it. That kind of was like, come on, really? Did you have to do that? But anyway,
yeah,
I just thought that was interesting about that.
So Alan, the next, since you're on Angus, or not Karsten and Angus, they're the next team up, and they came. Their build was a kiwi bird taking flight. So, Alan, kiwi birds.
Yeah, they don't fly.
They don't fly. No.
They're nocturnal. They live in forests and they don't fly.
They're nocturnal.
I've seen a kiwi, and it's very much to the ground, and it just like scurries when it runs. It just kind of scurries around. But I think they mentioned it when they were building it. They said that kiwis don't fly, but this one does.
Yeah.
And they took inspiration from Karsten's work as a flight attendant previously.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's why the runway, I think the forced perspective of this was one of my favorite things about this build.
Yeah. It had beautiful, it has beautiful detail. We'll go ahead that you can see with that forced perspective and the runway and whatnot in the sky. I loved how they did the sky. I thought it was really nice.
Yeah, that reminds me of the Starry Night set, the Van Gogh set. And then go back to the previous slide, if you would.
Sure.
Because the thing that you can't see very well in the live action shot is the korus, which are on the right.
Yeah, there you go.
The silver ferns that they have is part of it. So I think they were trying to bring about that. And I think that back pole, is that supposed to be the South Pole? Or did they ever mention that?
I don't know. They mentioned it.
Yeah.
On the left-hand side is the Auckland Sky Tower. I'm not quite sure what that pole's supposed to be.
Okay, maybe that's supposed to be the control tower. It just seemed a little off to me.
Possibly.
I'm not sure. Is it in the last?
It is in the final build. You can kind of see here. Let me get one more slide. There you can see the pole.
Okay. What is that? So
Is
Alan
it the
doesn't
moon?
know either. Okay.
Oh, you're right. I think it's the moon coming up.
Oh, okay. It's
that's
the
what it
moon
is.
coming up out of the sky.
And they tried to match the striations with that pole.
Oh, okay. Otherwise, it looks like a pole.
It
looks
does.
like a lopsided pole, right?
It does. Yeah.
But I do love this particular angle because it really shows the kiwi coming out of the frame and the forced perspective. You can see the korus better in this shot too.
You can, and then those little, I don't know, what is that? Is that a specific flower there on the side with the yellow made out of the banana pieces from?
Yeah, that's the Ko-Fi flower, which is a little yellow flower.
Oh, see, this is why we need Alan on the show.
Well,
Yeah.
It was all
Yeah,
about
they told
Kiwi.
us what it was in the show.
And then-
Yeah, but we don't have the reference when they say Ko-Fi.
yeah. When
Yeah.
I see it, I was like, okay, okay, it's a flower, all right. But I didn't. Yeah, the name didn't stick. I didn't recognize. But that's
That's because we're Yanks.
we're Yanks. The other detail they had is they actually put themselves as minifigs in the build. Encouraging, I guess, directing flight and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it here. They had those lights, that were runway lights that actually ran the whole
Yeah,
runway.
I love the runway lights. And they also made the wings, Kiwi. The Kiwi had like a red light and a green light on the wings too.
Yeah.
And hello, Brick Jedi. Ahoy, hoy. Good to see you here.
And so, in this shot, you can actually see the red light underneath the wings and whatnot.
And I love the look of the Kiwi's face on that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
With the helmet, the goggles.
Yeah, the Kiwi approves too. But the way they got the nose, I mean, it's just the beak. That's really clever.
That was really good. Really good build. So the bird doesn't fly, but this one does. All right.
Well, you remember Harry and Andrew, they deliberately did not choose a Kiwi because I think it was Harry who called it a big brown blob.
Yes, he does. He goes, oh, that's just a big brown blob. And then,
yes, exactly. We're not doing a Kiwi. Yeah. That I thought was interesting. And also they wanted to distinguish themselves too. Because I think everybody thinks of the Kiwi as part of, Kiwiana, and to choose deliberately something different, I think was one of the things that really set them apart.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. All right. Next was the whale tail. This actually looked, for me, I thought it was really, I like the color choices that they ended up picking with. Let's go.
This is Jason and Rachel.
Yeah, Jason and Rachel. You can kind of see how colorful it is, especially against that white wall. But yeah, it really stands out, and kind of get an idea of how big it is because it extends beyond the frame.
Mm-hmm.
I really. So are those the ferns on the? Let me pass, like on the whale tail there. Is that what those are?
The kodu. Yeah, the kodu is the iconic silver fern unfurling.
Gotcha. Yeah, because that was beautiful how they put that all over the whale tail.
I don't know. I was a little, I don't know. For me, it was kind of like the whale has tattoos on it.
Yeah.
and they're all, which I will say, Tomokos and tattoos of New Zealand are very iconic as well.
Yeah.
But it just seems so random. Like, yeah, we're going to put some,
Yeah. Well, I think if I saw it as a piece of art, out there, it's a whale tail, but then to bring it, in.
Yeah, it was playful. I will say that it was playful, but I did still think it was a little odd.
I find it's very specific to one specific place, which is Kaikoura on the east coast of the South Island.
Oh.
People go there to look at whales. That's pretty much the main reason why you go to Kaikoura. It's on the way to Christchurch.
That's the
so if you don't come from
main
there,
stop between Blenheim and Christchurch too.
Yeah.
I've taken that road, and I've been to Kaikoura, which is beautiful. And the other thing you go to see there are seals, because there's a big seal colony there, and there's actually a point called Seal Point that you can go see, and they're so docile. I mean, you can go up to them and actually pet them. They're that docile. The other thing about Kaikoura, which is interesting about this piece, and I had to look this up, I wasn't aware of this, that they reference the UFO sightings. Which is at the top of this. And I just thought that was so random. But when I started reading about it, that took place in 1978. And I guess there were a bunch of UFO sightings right there at Kaikoura.
Yeah.
It was out at sea, and most people come to the conclusion it's actually Japanese squid boats. And it's the light from squid boats being refracted through the atmosphere. And yeah, there was a book. I think I've got the book about it somewhere. It was on TV. It was a big thing at the time. And
Wow.
there was UFO. There were just lights in the sky, but they moved quite quickly.
And just reflecting off the sun. That's interesting.
The other point about Jason and Rachel's build is that they were given an extra hour to build this because they had won the advantage for the last Mechanimal challenge. But I think it goes back to what Robin had said during the first episode, is that it's better to keep things simpler instead of confusing. And I think in this case that they have so much going on, right? They have the UFOs up there, they have the whale tail going on, and it's like what are we looking at here?
Yeah. The other thing, and talking about color specifically, is their sky is, I don't know, that I guess the silhouette, I guess that's an evening kind of sky coming down.
Kaikoura is absolutely gorgeous.
The sunsets.
It is amazing, and I've only been there twice. I'm trying to remember, maybe 3 times, because it all depends on when you go up the coast and you stop, and you come back down the coast and you stop. So I've been there at least twice, and I tell you that I can imagine if you're living there, you never get old, you never get tired of the sunset, because it's just drop dead gorgeous.
And we should have had a New Zealand travel agency sponsor this episode.
Well, I mean, if you think about the previous builds too, I mean, the Albatross was very specific to, I wrote it down. He said Taiaroa Head. Taiaroa Head? Is that right?
Which is it's right next to Dunedin.
It's a 45-minute drive from Dunedin. I mapped it out on Google Maps. And it is known for the albatross colony. And Dunedin is also known for the penguins. I don't know if I showed this earlier. I think I did. The yellow-eyed penguins. And, of course, it's not. Here it is. So they were very happy that Dunedin was represented in there. But the other thing Kaikoura is known for is just seafood in general. And the other thing I remember about Kaikoura is and I think this is just in New Zealand in general, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, that when you have fish and chips there, that it's wrapped in a newspaper.
Yep. And
that you don't use utensils, you use your hands. Is that right?
How else would you eat fish and chips?
Well, for me, it was just interesting because usually, at least in the US, they usually present it to you in a basket. And the basket would have, the chips or French fries in our case, and then the fish. And then we would have some forks and knives. And maybe, of course, you would eat the French fries with your fingers. But I just thought it was interesting. But yes, you're right. If you're in New Zealand, that's how you eat it.
That's how you eat it.
The interesting thing about Kaikoura, of course, is the name.
Right.
Kaikoura, which means to eat crayfish.
Ah, wow.
Which is like lobster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's also, let's say, a shellfish, which is also known for over there.
Paua.
Paua, that's
which is abalone.
Yes. Because I remember I had a paua fritter when I was there, which essentially is finely chopped, minced, and then it placed in a batter of some sort and made into like a pancake. This was before I became a vegan, start practicing a vegan diet. I might have to become a pescatarian in order to enjoy those things again.
That's all right. So we had what? Ollie and Charlie's build. Kiwi Summers at the Beach. And this was full of a lot of Kiwiana. There was
chock full of Kiwiana. Though some people would argue the pavlova could be considered, I think, Australian. I think it's one of the
only by Australians.
Right. I think the Aussies and the Kiwis, argue with each other about whether a pavlova is a Kiwi dish or not. But we're going to call it a Kiwi dish for this.
There's kind of an overview, Bill.
That's a great shot.
Yeah, they did this with a few of the teams.
Mhm.
Kind of had that shot over the shoulder, kind of looking at it. So they had so close-ups here. So it was
Yes.
a kiwi,
The kiwi and the sheep.
So I was curious. Always blow on your pie, Alan. What?
When you buy a pie from the local from the dairy, the local convenience store,
Yeah.
it comes out of the warming oven.
Okay.
It's white hot.
Gotcha.
And it's a pie that has meat in it because pies have meat in them. So it's like mincemeat or steak and cheese or chicken in a pastry shell, and it's white hot. So yes, you blow on it, otherwise you burn yourself.
Gotcha. Okay, that's because I was, I was like always blowing your pie, and I'm thinking, yeah, no, I'm familiar with meat pies and things like that, but yeah,
this is why we have Alan on the show. If we tried to do this show and just talked about that, I mean, I would have known a little bit about that because pies are very popular in New Zealand too. They have lots of pie shops, and they're usually, these little handheld types of meals, and they're great that you can have on the go. It reminds me of the Jamaicans also have patties. They call them, meat patties. That it's kind of similar to what they do in New Zealand too. But the other thing that they mentioned, I think, in this one is, they talked about the pavlova. They talked about the pie. And I thought there was one other thing that they were eating too. That's
Hokey Pokey ice cream.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah, Hokey Pokey ice cream. And I don't have a shot of it, but they had what I think down below between them, they had fish and chips and the tomato or ketchup in the.
That's it. That's it. They also had they didn't. I don't think they called it ketchup. They call it tomato sauce.
Tomato sauce.
Yes.
Yeah, that's tea sauce for short.
And there's a special brand. I think it's Watley's, right?
Watties.
That's it. And of course, they couldn't say that on the show because you can't say any name brands. But they mentioned the tomato sauce. But usually, most Kiwis will have their pies with that Wattie sauce.
Yeah, there's kind of shows that this shot has it down kind of in between. You can kind of see it barely in there.
I think what was also fun about this build is when you saw it being created, that they deliberately put that shelf kind of, a quarter of the way up to give them the chance to have the legs kind of hanging over with those characters. Very cute.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you can kind of see it for their night mode. This is a better shot of it. You can see the lights. But the Northern Cross, and it looks like they just had a bunch of lights in the sky there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be the Southern Cross. We can't see
Southern Cross. Sorry. Alan, keep me straight,
This is why Yanks.
I'm in the Northern Hemisphere. Everything's north to me.
Thank you, Alan. He kept saying, I don't think I have much to contribute. I go, oh, trust me. This episode, you'll be able to contribute a lot. And Aotearoa, I'm not sure, PT, if you know this, that's the Maori name for New Zealand. And Aotearoa refers to the long white cloud. And I think if you see aerial shots of New Zealand, you'll see this long layer of cloud cover. And it's thought of as a very honorific type of name.
That's pretty good. All right. Well,
and the tree in the background, of course, is a puhutakawa.
Thank you.
Which is the New Zealand Christmas tree.
Yeah. Oh. So does it bloom only during, or is it those flowers? Are they bloom during the winter?
No, they bloom in summer, which is when Christmas is.
Yeah, they have Christmas in the summer because
that's right.
The reverse hemisphere.
Boy, howdy! I'm getting this is educational.
I told you. This is why you don't have Yanks try to talk about Kiwiana without a Kiwi on the call.
Oh, I'm used to. We have these Christmas cactuses, and they actually bloom in the winter around Christmas time. They're so they're kind of
they often have Santa Clauses. If you go to a shop in New Zealand in the winter, because I've been there in November for a conference, they will have shops of Santa in shorts because when Santa comes to visit, it's the summertime.
That's pretty good. Well, yeah. All right.
You have to get out of Southern California.
I
P.t.
do.
You need to
I
get
do.
down to New Zealand. They have direct flights from LA to Auckland, which is where Alan is, by the way. I forgot to mention that Alan's based in Auckland.
Oh, Auckland. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll move on. This is what? Harry and why am I blanking?
Andrew and
thank you.
Harry. Yeah.
Andrew and Harry and their build.
Kiwi Spirits, which I thought was ironic. They called it Kiwi Spirit, but they didn't use a kiwi. They used a Kia. And I had to look that one up too. It's spelled Kea because I was thinking Kia, like the car. So,
And Alan, I don't know, they because they talked about it and they said they made reference to it. Was it in the 70s or something, or the 80s? There was these commercials about keeping the beaches clean or something, or
Yeah, be a tidy Kiwi.
oh, be a tidy Kiwi.
So don't leave trash around.
Yeah, because they have flying off with a night. What did they call it? A
jandal.
Jandal.
Yeah,
That's a
jandal
trademark.
Is a sandal like this. Here,
Yes, like a flip flop or whatever we call them.
we call them flip flops. We also call them thongs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is a jandal in Kiwi speak.
Yeah, it's short for Japanese sandal.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's a trademark.
Oh,
Jandal.
I'm surprised that they were able to use it if it was a trademark.
It's
Maybe they didn't
fallen
know?
into common usage.
It's like Kleenex now.
Yeah, and it's lost.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Well, that's good.
But see, that's a little bit of trivia I did not know. It's short for Japanese sandal, jandal.
Yeah.
But what I really loved about this was actually my favorite of the bunch, is because of the way they did the mountains and the Kia bird. Just it was, to me, it was probably one of the most artistic builds of the ones that we've seen. It was just beautiful. Absolutely loved it.
And the Kia lives above. It's a mountain parrot, so it lives at the top of mountains. The most interesting thing it does is when you park your car in a car park near the mountains, the Kia birds will come and try and rip all the rubber out of around the windscreen. They're described as being cheeky. Vandal would be another word, but that's what they do.
Oh.
But, I mean, do they use it to build, or do they like the taste of it?
I think they just like doing it.
They just like to annoy the tourists coming around.
So someone trained them to do this, and he happens to own an auto glass shop.
The other thing about this is I looked at some photos of Kias, and when their wings are outstretched like it is here, you'll see these beautiful colors. But when the wings are not outstretched, then it's very much like a standard bird. So I think it's also an interesting bird for just the characteristics of the color. And I think they captured it really, really well here.
Yeah.
And that goes back to their earlier discussion that they didn't want to do a regular kiwi because it's just a big brown blob, right? So this was able to bring out a lot more color.
Yeah, and for their night mode, you can see the Southern Cross there, and then you see the sun, and then it'll flip. It'll go down, and the moon comes up, which was nice.
I think they did the best job of this transition too.
They did. I think so too.
Yeah. So this was my favorite. I was thinking about if I had these 6 hanging on the wall, which one would I like the most? And this was my favorite of the bunch.
I'm gonna have. I kind of like the whale tail, but that's that's me.
I think the UFOs were my problem with the whale tail. It was, that was a little just too weird for me.
All right. And here we go.
This is Amy and Louie.
Thank you, Amy and Louie. Verified bungee jumper. They actually, I was actually also impressed. There was a lot of detail.
Mm-hmm.
I also like they did, I think, lighting wise, when they went to night mode, they did a really, really, really.
Mm-hmm. I love the colors too. And what's interesting about all the builds is that they were very regional. This one is Queenstown, which is known for the bungee jumping and this large set of caverns and bridges that people jump off of.
I mean, bungee jumping was invented in New Zealand, so it's a New Zealand sport.
Really? I did not know that. There's a good factoid. Hey, thanks, Alan.
I told you.
He's got
you, Alan.
I had no idea
on this call. And I should have mentioned that Alan is not big into Lego. And the last time we had him on the show, he said, I didn't really think I could contribute much because he wasn't into Lego. I said, but this particular episode, trust me, you will have a lot to contribute. We will handle all the heavy lifting on the Lego part, but you'll have to keep us straight when it comes to the Kiwiana part.
Yeah. There's a little close up. I did like
that was
shaping.
Absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. Him coming out, I think he's pretty funny. If I saw this at a convention, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. How he comes out of that frame that far.
Right. But in night mode, can you imagine looking at that in the middle of the night? And thank you, Brick Jedi. Yeah, we're learning so much on this show because that's what we like to deliver on the Brickanista Broadcast Network.
It's not only entertaining, it is educational.
Educational, exactly. But like I said, this one was absolutely terrifying to me. I mean, that was kind of the point, right? Because it's supposed to be a terrified bungee jumper. But I don't know if I'd want to look at that. Like if I'm like going to the kitchen in the middle of the night and pass by this on my way to the kitchen, I'd have nightmares, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you can see, you see the bridge, you see these minifigs in the background. I mean, it's amazing. And like you said, you talk about the colors and the shaping of the mountains coming down and forming out. And then of course the little catch boat at the bottom there to catch them when they, fish them out of the water. But then you go into night mode and
terrifying.
See all those lights. And they were talking about glowworms, Alan, in this?
Yeah.
Wouldn't have thought there'd be glowworms there. The glowworms are in caves.
Yeah, I was going to say that was kind of a stretch because the glowworms, I think, are closer to Hamilton in the northern part of New Zealand.
I'm not sure if they have glowworms down. I wouldn't be surprised if there are glowworms there. They'd be in the forest. You see them a lot in caves.
Yeah, no, there's a cave, a glowworm cave you can go to that's close to Hamilton, which is part of the. What's that?
It's called Waitomo.
Yeah, that's it, Waitomo, the Waitomo caves, and so you can see the glowworms there. So when they said this on the show. And this is why, I'm a Yank, but I'm saying, no, that's not right. Queenstown doesn't have glowworms on the cliffs like that. But that's okay. It's a piece of art. So that's, it's their artistic interpretation.
I think I did go looking at glowworms in the South Island, somewhere around Lake Tiana. About 20 years ago. You can go into the bush and there's places where there are lots of glowworms. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that there would be glowworms around, but
right, that's true.
They'd run. They turn off when they hear noise, so screaming people would make them go down.
Yahoo! As they go down. Oh, that's good.
I like what they did at the top too. The use of the outside of the frame for some of the lighting too. I thought that was clever.
Yeah, those clouds or something. Is that what that is up there? Yeah, they put on that.
I think Charlie and Ollie's build as well did some nice work, kind of using the top of the frame.
Yeah. And that takes us to the end of the builds, and then of course, when it came time for elimination.
Spoiler alert!
Yeah, spoiler alert. Sorry, Andy and Peter.
Yeah. That
Unfortunately,
was so sad. Oh my gosh.
yeah,
I mean, I think too, anytime you hear Lego dropping on the floor, like in a massive amount like that, your heart just sinks.
yeah,
And I think the close up shots of everybody's faces when they all heard it at the same time,
yeah,
it just spoke volumes that they all were just horrified.
yeah,
And I think I was talking to somebody else that we think it's the first time it's happened on a Lego Masters show where, the last minute that something tragic like that would happen.
yeah. We've seen things happen before, but usually they have time. I mean, even
They
I
have
don't know. I
time
haven't
to
seen all
recover,
yeah, I haven't seen
or
all
they have a twist, right? Like when Aaron and Christian in season 1 of Lego Masters US, and remember they were moving the model to the presentation area and the tower fell over,
Yeah,
and yeah, they were just crushed. But then they said, "Oh, by the way, you have another 8 hours because we've just given you a twist."
yeah,
It's like, whoa, thank
yeah,
you, recovery. But yeah, there was no recovery from this, and it was just so sad. And I think too they were overly ambitious to try to add motion as well to the build when it wasn't in the brief.
yeah,
So I think that's another lesson learned, that if you ever are on the show, that just look at the brief and make sure you get all the points on the brief. If you want to go farther and go over the top, but do it in a place where you feel like you have good knowledge of that. Because they openly admitted that they were kind of out of their wheelhouse when it came to the motion.
yeah. Peter said he did. That was struggled with that.
Yeah.
I do have to say though, Peter was funny when he was kind of doing his goodbye, talking about, gosh, I want to have that brick pit at home. That's
Yes.
my goal is someday when I'm older is to have a brick pit room, with all those bricks. And yeah, I thought that's like every Lego enthusiast. They would love to have a brick pit like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then
Well, I think in addition to the brick pit, you want all of the workers refilling the brick pit for you. You don't want just the brick pit. You want all of, the maintenance that comes with the brick
with it. Yeah. Well, as we say, sorting is part of the hobby.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
But yeah, so they said goodbye to them, and then they had to. There were 2 top teams that came out: Amy and Louie, and Ollie and Charlie. And then when it was all said and done, they said Ollie and Charlie were the winners. So they won this challenge of Kiwiana. So.
And they did mention that Karsten and Angus got to keep their golden brick because there was no need for them to play it because everybody knew that Henny and Peter were going home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It was a really interesting episode, just learning so much more about the culture of New Zealand. And I was curious, Alan, about, since you're not a Lego enthusiast, how did you feel the episode covered and honored, I guess, part of the Kiwi culture?
I think some of them did it well. Some I think were a bit too specific. When I think of Kiwi culture, I think of things like rubber boots, gum boots, swan dry jackets, which are woolen jackets you wear in the rain.
Oh.
All farmers wear them pretty much.
Yeah.
And black singlets would be the most iconic New Zealand thing, I would say.
Black singlets?
It's a sleeveless T-shirt, but it's black.
It's
black is our national color.
Gotcha.
Everything. Yeah.
So if you've seen those movies where there's usually an overweight guy with a white shirt in the sun watching TV and his belly's hanging out, just change the white shirt to a black shirt. And that's a black singlet. Yeah. Is that right?
It's black so it doesn't show the dirt when you're working.
Yeah, gotcha.
And not to say that people who wear those are overweight and their bellies are hanging out, but usually in the movies, that's how they show them.
People that wear black singlets are usually working very hard, so I think that's not a great representation of
Well,
them.
the other one would be, Chippendales or one of those kinds of references. So it's almost like you have two extremes of the body types, right? That wear these. That's good information. Anything else that you think maybe should have been added, or?
I'm trying to think what's truly iconic about New Zealand. You'd have to be not so specific. I think, as I said before,
I was expecting a rugby game or a rugby ball or something. There was no reference to rugby in any of the builds, which I was extremely disappointed about.
What?
Because, as you know, rugby is a huge, iconic sport.
It is. But, the thing is in the builds, going back to the competition, you notice there's always that kind of group think because, you start talking because I think there were 3 builds that had a sun and moon movement. Out of the 6,
That's true.
How many of them had actual, Kiwi birds in them, things like that. There, there's kind of that group think. You start hearing, oh, that's a good idea. Let's add that. But yeah, rugby, you're right. Rugby was missed on that.
They could have easily added a rugby ball to the beach scene. They could have had it like in the background, like a little ball right there. Like,
that's what they could have done with their extra time.
They were taking a break from their rugby game to have this meal. Having rugby on the beach is quite iconic for, I think, New Zealand.
Yeah. So, Alan, if you're visiting New Zealand, what are the kind of some of the must sees or must do's?
Avoiding Auckland would be number 1. It's just a big town. Get out of Auckland as fast as you can.
Yeah,
Rotorua is nice.
Fly in and get a car out and go somewhere else.
There are some nice places in Auckland and also surrounding Auckland. I remember taking a ferry, trying to remember the name of the town, but there's a short ferry ride that you can take right from the Auckland Pier over to, and it's like a quaint little town. And I'm sorry, I can't remember it off the top of my head. I probably should.
That would be Devonport.
Oh yes, Devonport. Yes, that's a fun little thing to do. Whatever you do, though, if you do take the ferry to Devonport, don't ride the ferry on the top of the ferry boat on the way back because you'll have like 50-knot winds. And Murray and I made the mistake of doing that, and you can't even talk to each other because the wind is just blowing so hard in your face. So lower deck or inside would be better.
Good to know.
So if you're asking for places to go, the Bay of Islands in the north is very pretty. Go in summer, don't go in winter. Rotorua, you can go anytime. There's hot pools, boiling mud, geysers.
That's where Kingy is.
If you're a rich American, you can go to Queenstown on the South Island. No one else can afford to go there.
Except for the people who live there, right?
I don't think even the people that live there can afford to live there anymore.
Oh
wow.
Oh, there's another place that I have not been to. There's Milford Sound. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Yeah. My next trip, I have to go to Milford Sound.
It's a fjord and literally Fjordland, which is southwest of the South Island. Very pretty, very hard to get to. It's about 3 or 4 hours drive to get to there. There are boats that cruise up and down the fjord. It's very pretty. But make a full day trip to get there, basically.
Yeah, that's something you have to plan out. You can't just hey, I'm in New Zealand for a week. What should I do? And you landed in Auckland. You can't just oh yeah, let's go to Milford Sound. I think you have to fly down to Dunedin and then drive over, or you can take it from the top, I think, and drive down from Wellington, and that's a long drive. That
would be a long drive. People forget how big New Zealand is. It's bigger than Britain.
Mm-hmm.
Seen on maps, it's a big country with not many people in it. We talk about iconic things, mentioning sheep. Back in the 70s, when we had a population of 4.5 million people, we had 70 million sheep. So sheep, More work on the sheep, I think.
Well, and that's why that was really a good reference that Ollie and Charlie put into their build, too.
Although sheep don't eat meat pies.
That is kind of carnivorous.
I wondered about
isn't it?
that one.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, did they say it was a meat pie? They said you had to blow on the pie, but did they say what was in the pie? Oh, we'll have to go back
If
and
it's a
watch
pie,
that.
it would have to be meat. I mean,
They don't. Did
the,
they?
the concept of a fruit pie doesn't really exist.
No, but
like
potatoes. I've seen.
Or are you talking like a
potatoes.
vegetarian pie, maybe warm vegetarian
Yeah.
pie?
that. That's
I
not
have-
very iconic New Zealand. That's a fairly modern.
This is why you're here. You can tell us what's iconic and what isn't.
That's not Kiwiana. Huh?
This is a place where people grew up on meat and 3 vegetables. It's
There's also
the
a
concept
place
of
Yeah.
in southern New Zealand that's known for oysters.
Bluff.
Yes, Bluff Point. Is that right?
It's a town called Bluff. I went
Mhm.
there once. Coldest I've ever been in my life, and it was summer. The wind blows from Antarctica. Was it Mick Jagger said he went there once, and he said it was the bottom of New Zealand.
Oh,
Not quite, because there's still Seward Island.
Stewart Island is below
Stewart
that. Yes,
Island. Yeah.
very pretty. Nothing much there, but if you like hiking and pretty much hiking, it's worth
Mhm.
going there.
Well, I definitely need to go back. I was talking to Angus and I looked it up after the show. The last time I was in New Zealand was in 2017.
Yeah.
So that was in, I think, Wellington when you
Yep.
had the convention in Wellington. So I said, I'm due to go back. I mean, that's been 7 years ago. I need to go back. It has been way too long.
The country was shut for 2 years, though, in between.
Yeah, it's true. I was even mentioning that I haven't been to Europe in like 10 years. So it's been longer that I haven't been there. But I will say, PT, if you've never been to New Zealand, you absolutely should go. It is an amazing place. The people are wonderful. The food is good. And they speak English, so it's easy to get around. You don't have to worry about translations. Yeah.
apparently there's a direct flight from LAX.
Yes, there is. Here in New Zealand, several. You can fly, I think, from there to Sydney to, which is Australia. I know. It's like I was waiting for Alan to correct me. He's like, Sydney's not in New Zealand, right? Auckland, Wellington, I believe, and the other city which shocked me is Air New Zealand has a port out of Houston, Texas. And I guess there's people flying from Houston to New Zealand now. It's one of their
Any way that you can avoid LAX is a good option.
That's true. That is true.
I usually fly from San Francisco, so I've flown both on Qantas, going to Sydney, Emirates, going from Sydney to Auckland, and then I've also flown from, I think it was San Francisco directly to Auckland too. Just a long flight. It's like 12 to 13 hours. It's not
12, 13 hours, and it'll put you back little over $1,200 right now. See, we should have been sponsored by a travel agency.
Brought to you by Air New Zealand.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, thank you again, Alan, for sharing your wisdom with us. And I'm just curious, what are your plans for, you are in the middle of your summer, which is winter, because you were telling us before the show that it's really cold there. Do you do snow sports in June or July? Is this the time for that?
That would be the time to do it. The snow fields are opening up at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not what you'd call a rugged outdoorsman. Never have been. Never really saw the point of snow. It's cold and wet and far away.
What's the point of snow?
Let's drive for 5 hours so we can go play in the snow. Yeah, let's not do that.
I'm kind of with you on that. I do like cold weather, but I haven't been into skiing and some of those, snow sports. So I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Well, And PT, I want to thank you again for being a co-host, because people, thank you, Brick Jedi and others, for being on the Brickanista Broadcast Network. For those of you who are familiar, Brickanista Broadcast Network's here in Vancouver, Washington, USA. You can follow p.t.mcewen at p.t.mcewen on Instagram. Did I put 2 dots in there?
You did put 2 dots in there.
All right, there's only 1 dot. Sorry about that.
You have to go back.
Should
Talk
I
to those
correct
graphic
that?
staff and tell them to fix
Sorry,
that.
I was working behind the scenes. Here we go. There, it's corrected. p.t.mcewen on Instagram. And please like and subscribe to the stream. It really helps. And you can also follow me on rumble.com/user/Brickanista. Hopefully we will have an API integration here with StreamYard, so that people on Rumble can also put in their comments and we can respond to them. But if not, always you can do that on YouTube. So if you want to, you can also send me mail, traditional postal mail, 87232. Vancouver, Washington, 98687. So thank you, everybody, again. And Alan, please stick around a little bit after the end of the broadcast so we can thank you again.
And for all the fathers out there, happy Father's Day.
Yes, happy Father's Day. And I think also this weekend on Sunday, it's also Father's Day in Britain, and on Sunday. Are they celebrating Father's Day in New Zealand as well this weekend, Alan?
Good question. My father's dead, so I'm not sure. It hasn't been mentioned on TV, but...
Oh, okay. Well, happy Father's Day
diary.
For those who celebrate. I sent my cards on Wednesday. Hopefully they'll get there to my brother and to my dad. But thank you, everybody, again. And as they say on the Brickanista Broadcast Network, thank you, and may the clutch be with you. Take care.
Ciao.
Bye.